Hello, I'm Rights On, and I'm going to tell you about a small borough in Pennsylvania that hired a cop who killed 12-year-old TAMIR Rice. The name of this borough is Tioga. Standing in a nondescript corner of the Tioga Borough Council room, Mayor David Wilcox read from a printout of the Pennsylvania police oath and swore in his small town's new police officer. A few feet away, a clean-shaven man raised his right hand and took the pledge. One day later, Wilcox stood on the back of a pickup truck in the parking lot outside the municipal building and told dozens of protesters he was deceived by the borough council and that he knew nothing about the man he had inducted as Tioga's only police officer the day before. That man was Timothy Loman. Loman shot and killed a 12-year-old TAMIR Rice, a black boy who was playing with a toy gun at a park in Cleveland in 2014. The shooting prompted national outrage and several nights of protest in Cleveland and other cities, but a grand jury declined to indict Loman. He was later fired for failing to disclose that his prior employer had deemed him unfit for duty. 8 years later, and 300 miles east, that history would thrust remote Tioga Borough and its 700 residents into an intense but fleeting national limelight. But the story of what led to the controversial decision and what it revealed about this place and its leaders hasn't been told until now. Robert Wheeler was appointed to the city council to fill the seat of his wife, who had fallen ill. Wheeler worked for the borough as a code enforcement and zoning officer since 2019, and now was thrust into a city council member, into a seat. He said that it was a steep learning curve. I had no clue where we were, he said. We had a bunch of new people on. Nobody really knew the true information on what we needed and how to get it. He was responsible for the police hire. Now, understand, this is a small town, a borough. It only had one cop. So the cop that was previously there was Michael Northrup. And he resigned because of the nonsense going on in that town. And they found out that he did not complete a psychological evaluation that he was supposed to have done. So I guess they gave him the opportunity to resign. So then they needed to find a new officer. So a few months of searching went by before the borough had 3 candidates for its sole full-time officer position. One candidate from Philadelphia dropped out due to a family emergency, Wheeler said. Another worked for the borough previously, but was fired. He was fired in 2014. And then the third candidate, Timothy Loman. In the job application Loman submitted to Tioga Borough, he described a police-involved shooting in 2014, where the suspect killed was later determined to be a juvenile armed with a replica handgun at an open recreation center. He wrote that investigators determined the shooting was a reasonable and justifiable use of deadly force. A grand jury in Cuyahoga County, where the shooting happened, declined to indict Loman. Years later, the U.S. Department of Justice closed its investigation in December of 2020, citing insufficient evidence to support federal crimes charge. Loman wrote in his application that he received an Act 120 certification in October of 2020 after completing a basic training course required for Pennsylvania municipal police officers as a crucial step that allowed him to be considered for employment. Loman went to Tioga for an interview in May of 2022. The Borough Council Police Committee, Wheeler, Hazlitt, Councilmember Alan Brooks, and Mayor Wilcox, who oversees the day-to-day operations of the police department, met with him. I very well liked this man, Wheeler wrote in his interview notes. He seemed like he had a good head on him. So the council unanimously approved Lohman's probationary hiring during its June 6 meeting. Lohman then completed a physical exam and a psychological exam, passed the standard but comprehensive criminal background check, had his fingerprints taken, and submitted a form for the borough to request an Act 57 database check from the Pennsylvania State Police Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission, also known as MPOETC. Act 57 is a 2020 law that requires the state to maintain employment records of law enforcement officers and note when they have been disciplined or fired for certain actions. By law, the database is supposed to be used as part of the hiring process, but Lohman's appointment would later expose its limitations. In at least 6 borough council meetings in 2022, Tioga residents pressed the council about public safety. For a borough in desperate need of a police officer, as Wilcox wrote on Facebook, things seemed to be coming together as Lohman's application moved forward. On the morning of July 5th, Judy Krepich, an administrative assistant for MPOETC, wrote in an email to Tioga Borough's then Secretary, Joan Stone, that, quote, the officer can be sworn in before completing all requirements. He just can't work as an officer outside the office. That evening, Lohman took his oath. A photo of the swearing-in ceremony posted on Facebook sparked immediate outrage online as people inside and outside Tioga learned of Lohman's hire. Dozens gathered in front of the borough building the following day and protested the decision. Tioga drew national attention as newsrooms across Pennsylvania and the country covered the ordeal. So the mayor put out a quote, I want to personally assure everyone that I had zero knowledge of the candidate that we just hired for our police department. Wilcox told demonstrators gathering outside the borough building on July 6th, according to a video posted by the Wellsboro Gazette. Several protesters held signs that read Black Lives Matter in rural PA. Mayor Wilcox repeatedly told reporters and the public that he was misled by some council members about who Lohman was, and posted a video in which Wheeler misspelled Lohman's last name, replacing the E with a C during the council's June 6 meeting. Wheeler told Spotlight PA the misspelling was an honest mistake that he made in a hurry. This is one of the things that drives me crazy about Pennsylvania with these little small boroughs and towns. And I mean, here's a town that has roughly 700 citizens. The city government had one job to hire one cop, and they can't seem to get it right. And then they hire a cop that murdered a 12-year-old little boy. These little towns in boroughs in PA are absolutely disgusting and how they're run. People, you can get so jammed up in these towns because of these little infightings, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I lived through them. I know about them. You got judges that aren't judges. You got sheriffs that are drunks. It's who you are, what family you're from, how much money you have, and you could basically own a small town in PA. The mayor's blaming the city council members. This one city council member that spelled the name wrong. I mean, these people are fucking idiots. First of all, Lohman, when he filled out the application, he put on there he was involved in a police shooting. He didn't put down that he was the shooter and that he murdered a 12-year-old boy. This mayor and this city council should be ashamed of themselves. You have one cop in that town. One cop. And you can't get that right. You're a fucking disgrace. This one city councilman, Wheeler, listen to what he says. His quote, he was in an incident that involved a shooting, and they proved he was innocent. Where does that make him a bad cop? He said. And my personal opinion, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's been 10 years. The guy deserves a second chance and another break. And a lot of people in this town, a lot more than you think, agreed the same way. This guy, end quote. So, you're going to give your town of 700 people that have one police officer, and you're going to let that officer be the one that needs a second chance? What are you, a fucking moron? One of the city council members, he was getting a lot of backlash from the town because, so listen what he writes. This guy Hazlitt. In 2015, he called TAMIR Rice dumb in a Facebook post. Wrote on Facebook on July 7th that Lohman had withdrawn his application, but that didn't end the controversy. Big fucking deal. You're an idiot. These are the idiots that run our small boroughs and towns in Pennsylvania. I mean, this guy Hazlitt, he was the council president, for Christ's sakes. I mean, there was another quote that he said about making the mistake of the spelling, that he didn't do it on purpose, which the mayor says it was done on purpose, so he couldn't look up the cop's name and find out that he was this cop that killed this 12-year-old boy. So this council president, this is his quote. I can't pronounce names real well or spell, he said, and I couldn't remember how to pronounce his last name, so that's why I was trying to spell it, and that's where all this came about. This fucking crayon eater. Really? Council president. So, the killer cop is gone. As of the second week in December, Tioga still hasn't had a full-time police officer hired, but they have state police that handle calls and the county sheriffs. So makes you wonder why these little towns are able to incorporate and run. It's like the Wild Wild West out here in Pennsylvania. Some of these towns, the further you get out into central PA, western PA, the further you get away from the cities like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, you find more and more radical towns like Boss Hogg, Dukes of Hazzard type of shit. Like, just be careful if you're out there traveling and you're coming through PA and you find yourself coming through one of these little boroughs like Tioga, and you're the wrong colored skin, or they don't like the way you're talking in the gas station. I mean, you can get jammed up and disappear for a couple days. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Closing in on 1,000 subs. Soon as I'm able to start going live, I will. I have an interview coming up I'm going to post with former officer in Ironton, Ohio, Beth RIST. Her book is getting released Christmas Day, I believe. The digital copy is available now. I'll post links. Thanks everybody for stopping in. I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas, and we'll talk soon.